Welcome, boils and ghouls, to the Crypt Podcast. I'm Kenny, and I'm here with my co-host Godden, and together we're here to watch and review every horrific, often hilarious episode of the legendary HBO anthology series, Tales from the Crypt. Hello, Godden.
Good morning, Kenny.
Here we are. We're ready to talk about Season 3, Episode 4, Abra Cadaver. It aired June 19th, 1991, and it comes to us from the comic Tales from the Crypt. I'm always excited when we have a Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, you know, when I was watching this episode, because I forgot which catalog it's from, it felt very like serious. I was like, is this Tales from the Crypt or Shock Suspense? Like that's what I had in my mind. I'm like, it's one or the other. It can't be what's the third one? I always forget the third one.
Oh, yeah, Shock Suspense, like, Tales from the Crypt, and then there's the Vault of Horror.
Vault of Horror. I think that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, it has to be Tales or Shocks. There's no way.
Yeah, this is not like a crime drama. So let's get into it. And before we do, I've got to give the disclaimer. We are not experts. Godden and I are just a couple of hobbyists who enjoy watching a show and then coming online to just blab about it. So here we are. Take everything we say with a grain of salt. If you agree, comment. If you disagree, comment. Let us know what you think in the comments. We want to build a community around this show. So don't forget to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I'm terrible at promoting myself, by the way. Terrible at all this. So what I'm trying to say is just like, subscribe, comment, watch our videos, go back and watch our old videos. Okay. And then come back and watch our videos next week. So watch. Also, spoiler warning, we're going to go into great detail about this episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it and then come back to hear us go on about it. So Godden, set the stage for us. Back in June 19th, what kind of things might we have seen or heard about in the world that would be on our minds during this time?
So one of the biggest things was Pablo Escobar. He was in jail that day. He was arrested that day.
Oh, wow.
On that exact day, he was arrested. So that's like one of the biggest things that could have happened. The other two things I've noticed were just, fun little music notes. Like, I'm not sure who, I don't think I've heard of Paula Abdul. Realistically, I think I've heard the name, but I don't think I've actually listened to any of the songs. But Rush was the #1 song.
Oh, I know Rush. And I think you know a lot more Paula Abdul songs than you. You may not know they're her, but you've heard Paula Abdul songs.
And then the other one is "I Want to Sex You Up" by Color Me Bad. That one sounds familiar.
Yeah,
but I'm not too sure.
I want to sex you up. Yeah,
okay,
I know that song.
I see.
You know Rush also. If I played that song, you would know it. You also know Straight Up Now, Tell Me, Do You Really Want to Love Me Forever? Oh.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just one of those moments where like you've heard it, but like just never knew the artist, never knew the title. Just heard it on the radio or in a movie.
I know you've heard the songs because back in the day, I was a big metalhead. I was all about, the Metallicas and all that heavy metal, AC/DC and Pantera, all that kind of stuff back in the day. And even I know Paula Abdul. So if I know, you know. I was definitely not in the pop world back then. All right, so we have Rush on the radio. We've got I Want to Sex You Up on the radio. We've got Pablo Escobar being arrested in the news. And then we tune in to HBO to get this episode. And let me just give you the briefest of brief overviews by reading the ancient texts inked in human blood on the back of the DVD box set here. Abra Cadaver. Serious side effects include laughter and death when revival doctors mix research with cruel practical jokes.
Yeah.
That's okay. But, like many of these back of the DVD box set reviews, they're a bit short. There's a lot they have to write about for a lot of different episodes. They don't have a lot of room. So I have as much room as I need. So I have another review here. I have another synopsis here. A world-renowned surgeon has his career and identity shattered after a prank by his younger brother renders him partially paralyzed. resentful, and desperate for revenge, he devises a chilling prank of his own. One that will shed some light on the terrifying question, what happens to your consciousness after you die?
Oh, I like that one, Kenny. This is getting so much better. But it really all depends on like the episode. I feel like for you to like have a zinger, you know?
Yeah.
Like if it's not a strong one, you have been like, eh.
I try.
But the good ones, I get, yeah.
I should submit these to Tales from the Crypt. So if they make a Blu-ray box set, they can update the descriptions.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be an interesting job, huh? An episode description writer.
This is the main like think tank people.
That's your main job. I write descriptions of DVD of TV episodes.
That would be fun though. That would be a fun job.
Okay, so before we get into this episode, we all want to know. I want to know. I am on the edge of my seat with anticipation. Godden, what are your overall thoughts of this episode?
I thoroughly enjoy this episode, and like you mentioned to me a week ago, this should have been on the premiere. I agree 100%. After watching it the first time, the second time, I feel like this should have been with the first three.
Absolutely.
Somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The premiere, the 3-episode premiere, which by the way, hopefully you all watched last week all at once in one day. So we had 3 episodes air last week. It was a season premiere. All 3 episodes aired in the same day. And one of them was great. Okay. The other 2 were just okay. And I don't mind just okay. Like in the middle of a season, sometimes a just okay episode is like, hey, we're still having fun here. But in the season premiere, when you're airing the first 3 episodes of your season, I don't want 2 of the episodes to be just okay. So I was disappointed. This episode is much better than just okay. This should have been either episode 1 or episode 3. They could have replaced one of those episodes with this one. This was such a fun episode, and I had a lot of fun watching it. I had a lot of fun rewatching it, and I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about it. So I'm looking forward to actually diving into this episode. So let's cut to the Crypt Keeper intro. And it starts off with the Crypt Keeper looking at a corpse on a table, and he actually gives it a big whiff. He's like, a corpse by any other name would smell so sweet. Unless, of course, it isn't dead yet, which is, of course, is, right, would a rose by any other name smell so sweet, right? What's in a name? Today's tawdry tale is about a man who's gravely concerned about matters of his life and death. Why he'd care about that remains to be seen. I call this putrid piece Abra Cadaver. Now, hold the phone, Godden. This might be the best title of an episode so far.
Yeah, I do enjoy it a lot. I'm trying to think of another one, but this really is just so good with the pun.
Oh, this was great. This was such a good, such a good name of an episode and such a good delivery of the episode. I love this one. And by the way, the Crypt Keeper at this point, he's dressed up in a doctor's garb and he's looking at the corpse. And I thought, oh yeah, this is, because remember that each box set, he's wearing something different in each season. And last season he was wearing the doctor getup. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, now he's finally wearing what we've been waiting for him to wear. But I thought, no, this is coming too late. This is from season 3. So they mixed it up. I don't know what to say about that. Was he ever wearing a medical gear in season 2?
Maybe from a Mute Witness to Murder. That's the only thing I can think of that has a doctor or some sort of, like medical field.
Yeah, he might have been. If you remember a particular episode where he's wearing something similar to, medical gear, yeah, let us know in the comments because I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't know who chose the cover art for each season box set, but they should be fired. Okay, they should be fired. I'm just kidding. And that brings us to the opening panel, which is a couple of doctors kind of arguing with each other.
Yeah,
I think. Anyway, it looks like they're getting ready to perform an autopsy. One of them is trying to pull down the blanket covering a corpse. The other one's kind of holding him back, and the one is with a mullet. They both kind of have mullets, actually. Is holding a scalpel. So this has to do with the opening of the episode where, you know, the main character is, you know, oogling over a corpse of a woman. And the other one's kind of, you know, trying to get him to stop. Not exactly the way it played out in the episode, but, you know, there you have it. I don't know. I guess I just don't find this one as exciting as some other ones. But you know what it is? There's no blood. There's no blood.
Yeah, that's the first thing my mind went to. It's like, yep, there's no gore, blood. Kenny's not gonna really be satisfied.
No, it's a little too sterile of an environment. I want a little more crud on the walls and, you know, brown and dingy stuff, and then I want some mucky blood somewhere. Yeah, that's what I want. This one's a little too clean for me, a little too polished. Anyway, the scene starts off. We're in a flashback in this, and you get the sense that we're in a flashback right away because this whole opening sequence is in black and white. And you get these two doctors who are kind of coming into the morgue area, and they're having an argument. The older doctor, who's Marty, by the way, this turns out to be the older brother, but we don't know that yet. So the older brother, Marty, is basically saying, you know, no, you're talking about heart death. I'm talking about brain death. So the older doctor already is talking about, you know, the brain living beyond death. And the younger doctor, who's Carl, this is the younger brother, he's convinced the brain just dies when you die. He says, no. You take away the oxygen from the brain. All you have is just a couple of pounds of organ meat. They can't hear, they can't feel, they can't see. So they're going back and forth already in the beginning of the episode. You're getting kind of the theme of the entire episode. It turns out that this younger doctor is trying to get himself through medical school. And they're basically, I got the impression they're here like on a weekend. The older brother is there to help the younger brother kind of study for his exam, I suppose. So they're going to be, you know, going into the office, so to speak, the morgue, to go look at some, you know, some cadavers. So basically, the younger brother, Carl, is kind of going from body to body to body, looking at all of them and be like, we'll come back to this one. I don't really know. Yeah, right. Like he's basically just kind of perusing. And he finally gets to the last corpse. And he throws back the sheets, and it's a beautiful woman, completely nude. And he says, "Oh, I'd go necro for you in a second." And the older brother, of course, is just disgusted by this. Carl, the younger brother, actually starts to like caress the dead body and starts feeling all over it. And by the way, while this is going on, I don't know if you noticed this, Godden. I can see why people might be distracted because there's a beautiful naked woman right there on the table. But above, did you notice that the boom mic kept coming into frame in this moment?
I did, but then I got redistracted by the beautiful woman.
Right. Yeah, right. I can imagine that might have been what the director and the producers and the editors all might have been distracted by. But there was, in fact, a boom mic coming in and out of the top of the frame. By the way, at this point, also, they kind of hint at the fact that the brain might still be alive, even after death, because the older doctor, you know, he's really concerned that she might be aware of what's going on. And of course, you know, the younger brother kind of just, you know, says, no. It just keeps going on, touching the body. And he even says, "Oh my gosh, I think her skin just responded to my touch. Come over here and feel." So Marty, the older brother, comes over to also touch, but just before he touches, she wakes up and she screams, and this, of course, freaks out Marty. He collapses down to the ground, and all the corpses in the morgue then rise. And from this point, you're thinking, okay, here we go with the horror story. But it was all just a prank. It's Marty's birthday, and Carl was, you know, giving him a surprise birthday party, and everybody's laughing and enjoying themselves. And Marty starts to kind of ease up and laugh a little bit, but then he suffers a heart attack and collapses. And that's kind of the opening of the episode. What do you think about the opening?
I liked it. I liked that it was in black and white. You know, it was a change of pace because I don't think we had a black and white moment before in the Tales from the Crypt. We only had a blue filter for a different color, you know, correction. But yeah, I enjoyed like the banter they had right when they, the episode starts. It's just the pace is just right there. It's not like a slow burn. It's just like, yep, we're going. We're if you're not with us, you're falling behind.
Yeah.
And then and just the portrayal between the two personalities, it was pretty fun. Like, yeah, he's a little creepy, but yeah, it's a prank, so it's like it was all planned. But it's just he was so good at being like, just a little creepier. It's like, should he be a mortician or any kind of doctor to perform some bodies? If this is just his outlook on it, it's like,
Right.
I want
Right.
Marty
Yeah.
to
What
be
kind of
there
a
more.
doctor or mortician says, I'd go necro for you in a second.
Yeah.
That's really haunting and chilling to think about. This trope in movies there is this trope in movies and in shows where you have like a cold open like this, where things just start up right away. And then you suddenly hear the director go, cut. And then it turns into like, they were just pretending, or they were just filming a scene. It happened in the Tales from the Crypt movie, actually. I think Demon Knight, it opened this way. So I'm glad they didn't go that route. I was worried that they might go that route. So I'm glad that this was actually canon, that this whole opening sequence was part of the plot, even if it was just a prank. This next scene, we jump forward. I don't know how long. I don't think it ever tells us. But at this point, we go back to color, and we learn that the younger brother, Carl, is now a surgeon. He is, I think he's a director of surgery or something like that. He has his own office. It's a huge office, and he's there, and he's kind of having an argument with I don't know if it's his girlfriend or his wife, but they're arguing back and forth. She's insisting that he's avoiding her, and he says, no, I'm not. She says, is it over? Is that what you're trying to tell me? And he says, don't go reading dire messages into everything. Sometimes a banana is just a banana. Does that have something to do with what she's reading into? I wonder.
I'm not sure, but it's such a backhanded thing to say. Banana's just a banana. I'm not sure she's hiding something.
Did this whole argument stem from something about a banana? I don't know. So while he's having this quote unquote argument with his quote unquote girlfriend or wife or whoever it is, he opens up a letter, he reads it, and he's basically, God damn it, and he gets up and he leaves. So something happened in this letter. So that brings him to the, I guess, another sort of laboratory or office or something where his brother works. So Marty, it turns out, survived the heart attack, but it did leave him partially paralyzed. Is it his left hand or his right? I think it's his left hand that he can't really use very well. He can move his arm, but his hand is it doesn't really move. So he's kind of like partially paralyzed. And that cost him his being a surgeon. He's no longer a surgeon. Now he's just a researcher. This is the moment where we get revealed that Carl basically employs now his older brother. He funds his research, but he can no longer fund his research because it's not really producing anything. So I guess like as payback or as like retribution or some sort, Carl offers him a professor position somewhere else. And it turns out that Marty refused it. Marty didn't want to go be a professor. So that's kind of what got him all upset. So Carl is basically telling him, look, I'm going to cut off your funding. Go be a professor somewhere else and make money that way. But Marty refuses. And rather than really talk to him or talk about the situation, Marty just pours some whiskey for him. And this is interesting. He pours his whiskey in a glass, but then he pours Carl's whiskey into a beaker, which I found highly suspicious. And I think Carl should have as well. So Carl drinks down his whiskey from the beaker, and then Marty goes on to tell his story about him going to Haiti. So he went to Haiti, and apparently there was some sort of a ritual that took place in Haiti that's called La Mort Vivante, which is the living dead. And Carl doesn't want to hear this. He says, I don't want to hear about this voodoo stuff. And that's when it's revealed. He goes to the back station. There's all this kind of high-tech equipment going on, all these computer screens going on, these brain scans, and he pushes some buttons on this thing, and then out comes this tray. I'm basically going to call it like a voodoo ritual platter. There's like smoke coming out. There's like a shrunken head. some dolls and figurines. There's like a dead bird on, like, it's just basically all the traditional voodoo type things that you can imagine all on this tray. But it just looks so funny being there, like surrounded by all of this high-tech equipment. So I just thought that was a funny scene or a funny moment. Marty is then recounting when he was back in Haiti, he was saying that he was seeing bodies rise from the dead and that this voodoo stuff is actually real. And at the same time, he's got these dead bodies, these cadavers basically hooked up to these brain scans that are showing all this brain activity. So he's convinced that the brain goes on living after you die. Carl's not having any of it. He basically says, your funding's over. And he goes to leave. He says, have a nice life. And his brother responds, have a nice death. And at that point, Carl stops in his tracks, grabs his chest, and he collapses. He starts having a heart attack. And as he's having a heart attack, Marty just looks on calmly and basically tells him, I'm surprised you didn't taste that poison that I put in your drink. So basically, he killed his brother. He's giving him a heart attack. But at the same time, he has this weird green serum that he injects him with just as he's dying. So this is what I guess keeps the brain alive after he's dead. So that's another thing too, is I got confused. Does the brain just go on living after you die, or is it the serum that causes your brain to go on living after you die? I don't know. I'm a little fuzzy on that, but he gives him the green serum. And at that moment, every time they talk to Carl, because Carl's dead at this point, every time they talk to Carl, it's from the first person view, from Carl's perspective. So he injects him, and then you get that first person view saying, how does it feel being dead? And Carl responds, I'm not dead. I'm talking to you, aren't I? But of course, we learn it's all just internal dialogue. So from here on out, every time Carl speaks, it's that internal dialogue going on. And I actually have some interesting thoughts about this internal dialogue dynamic going on. When I was first watching it, I thought it was kind of cheesy. I was okay with it, but I just thought it was cheesy. After I watched it, there's a few lines that he said that really stuck with me. So in retrospect, I find it kind of chilling and haunting that he's giving such detailed description of what he feels and what he thinks, that while watching it, it seems kind of cheesy, but some of the things he says sticks with you. So I found it kind of chilling. Oh, and one last thing Marty says, just as we end this scene, is he says the first thing to go is your sense of touch. So you can see, you can hear, you can still, all that kind of stuff can still happen, and you can still feel, but the first thing to go is your sense of touch. I talked for a lot just then. Is there anything that you want to add about that particular scene?
Yeah, I agree. That green serum, though, like, does it just paralyze him? Does it actually keep his brain alive, like you mentioned, or is it just like what could it be? Or is it just part of the voodoo thing, or do you think it's some concoction he made up? There is a lot of questions, but it's also kind of fun that it's just unknown at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is one of those episodes. It didn't really need that whole voodoo backstory. It didn't really need it. It just, the fact that your brain lives on after you die, that in and of itself is haunting. Yeah, maybe, well, because I think the drink gave him the heart attack, and the green serum kept him alive. Maybe that's kind of the angle they were going for. I don't know. Anyway, so this is where the episode really starts going, by the way. It really starts having a lot of fun. We're in the morgue, okay, and we're in the perspective of Carl, and he has that sheet over him. The sheet gets pulled back, and then some voodoo, it looks like some sort of a voodoo priest or something looks over him with a really cliche Jamaican accent, looking over him, and even has the long dreads that are coming down. Very, very cliche voodoo looking guy. He says, we like the bodies fresh. Most of the time they come here already all chopped up. That's the best I could do with the Jamaican accent, but very, very cliche, very, very voodoo heavy. And basically what's going on here is it appears that Marty is selling this corpse to some voodoo priest as some sort of a John Doe to kind of get rid of the corpse. And Carl basically says, how can you do this? I'm your own brother. As they're getting the corpse ready, by the way, as they're talking, I like also that the voodoo priest guy is like flicking his face, and he's like, "Ow, stop that, ow." Marty asks this voodoo priest guy if he wants help hanging him up, and then that's where Carl says, "Not the meat locker."
I'm not sure if this is the next scene or this scene where, because he's Jamaican, so he's definitely like getting stoned, and then he like, blows it onto him, or like he gives the joint to his body. But I don't remember if it's this scene or the next scene.
Yeah, that's actually in the meat locker that happens.
Okay, so it is that. Okay.
Yeah, when they go to the meat locker, they I think Mitch, by the way, Mitch is the name of this voodoo priest guy. He's calling him Mitch, or something that rhymes with Mitch. I don't know. So Mitch makes an incision on Carl's back. And this is one of those scenes. This is one of those lines of dialogue that really stuck with me, because he says, "I can feel the pressure on my spine, but it doesn't hurt. Marty was right. Touch is the first feeling to go." So you don't see it, but just that line of dialogue, it stuck with me. He can feel the pressure on his spine, but it doesn't hurt. So you can just imagine knowing that you're being cut into, but it doesn't hurt. So yeah, the panic would set in, but you can't do anything about it. So that line stuck with me. So they throw the hook in there and they hang him up, and then they leave. Oh no! Before they leave, Marty asks, "What if it doesn't hold?" and then Martin goes, "If it doesn't hold, he'll never know, but he will know." That's the whole that's like the flip side of it. I love that part. I love that moment. So they hang him up, and it's basically as soon as they leave, he's hanging there, and then you see him kind of go whoop, whoop, kind of slide down, and then he falls down to the ground. And the fall is actually the first person perspective, so you just see from his point of view just falling down. Oh, by the way, I should also say I really enjoy all the moments that we aren't in first person. Also, when we actually see Carl, I love how Tony Goldwyn pulled this off. The actor, he's just like, you can almost say it's not acting, but it is acting. He just looks so like dead. He has like no facial expression. His mouth is gaping open. His eyes are open. I just love the moments where we're just looking at his face, just looking so dead. So this next moment is the one you're talking about. So the Martin, did I say Martin? Was Mitch? Mitch comes back into the meat locker and sits him up. And this is where he's smoking a joint. He blows it right into to Carl's face. He actually takes his joint and puts it in his mouth. And you can hear Carl, say, "Hey, I don't know where your mouth has been."
Oh, yeah.
I love how he's dead and he's going through all of this and he's still concerned about germs.
I know. He's been cut up. He's already hung up. Like, germs is the last of your worries at that point. You are definitely infected if you're still alive. With all all those like open wounds. But,
right. Yeah, I know you have an open wound in your back, a hook sticking out of your back. You're lying on the floor and you're worried about somebody who puts a joint in your mouth. So they put him up on the embalming table, and this is so you see the tubes kind of coming out from his perspective and the blood flowing out of his body, and then you get a shot of his face with the tube of blood in the sink just above his head, and you see his blood draining out from him, and then you hear him saying, "I feel so lightheaded. This numbness is taking over." And that's another line that stuck with me after watching this. Just imagine feeling all your blood being pumped out of your body and just, that tingling sensation. He says he can feel it taking over his body. I thought that was really, really effective dialogue. So we find out that Martin is still there. Martin comes over and he says, "Hey, so I ended up taking that teaching job. I'm going to basically give a demonstration of an autopsy and then show them your brain." So he asked for the epidural saw. He says it cuts skin and bone, and he grabs it. And so he turns the drill on. He's getting ready to drill into his skull. And at that moment, you see there's like a little shot where you see Carl start to move his fingers. And he starts yelling, he starts yelling, I'm alive, just like in Frankenstein, it's alive. So yeah, from Carl's perspective, you see him take the saw and hold it up, and then you hear it cutting through the bone, and then more dialogue that I thought was campy at the time, but again, stuck with me. He says, I'm being peeled. They're tearing my skull apart. It's not just the dialogue, it's his delivery. I think he did a good job at really, really evoking panic in his dialogue. So it was kind of like the dialogue itself was kind of stilted, and reading it back is definitely cringy, but his dialogue was so effective. I really felt the panic in his voice when he was saying his lines. I think that mostly is what stuck with me, is his delivery. He did a great job with this.
That whole embalming moment just flashed back me into that Mortician episode from season 2. Like it felt very similar in like the setup in terms of like, is it the same set, or like is this the same props that we're using? Because like the whole tubes and like the water running is what threw me back. I was like, it looks like it's the same place, because it looked kind of like gritty. It didn't look clean, you know. It was just like, I don't know. It just took me there for a second. I was like, they could just be reusing it. It would be kind of fun if they were reusing some of these areas. So
yeah, that would have been a nice set to go revisit. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So the scene, it gets close to an end, right? After all this drilling, they rip the top of the skull off, and they pull the brain out, and they're actually holding the brain in front of Carl. And at this moment, Carl wakes back up and he jolts up screaming, and it was all a prank, basically. So he still has the top of his head, we find out, right? They just have some other brain and skull from probably some other body. It was all a fake setup. The Mitch guy is actually like a fellow surgeon or a research assistant or something like that. He takes his wig off. He's like a clean cut regular guy with a regular accent, very professional. And it was funny to see how it all twisted so quickly. And lo and behold, when he finds out that it was all just a prank, he has a heart attack. Go figure.
I'm just surprised that he got a heart attack. Is it just like these, because they're brothers, right? Or they're brothers. So whenever they have a surprise, they just get a heart attack. Because when he pranked him, he had a heart attack, and when he got pranked, he got a heart attack. But he went through something more severe than Marty went through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, the next scene actually, I think, hints at that. So he's at his autopsy. He dies, and again, his brain's still alive after he's died. And he's in the autopsy room. There's a couple of doctors looking over on him. And one of the doctors says, basically, it was an experimental drug that caused the heart attack. So that green serum that he gave to his brother might have caused the heart attack. So, but then he finishes by saying, pass me the epidural saw. And he goes to cut his head open. And then we get more internal dialogue. And he says, Marty, you were right. The brain stays alive after you die, but you were wrong about one thing. The sense of touch isn't the first to go. It's the last. Ah! And he starts screaming again. And again, the dialogue is cheesy, but his delivery, I think, was really on point. I really liked his internal dialogue throughout this episode. And that brings us to the Crypt Keeper, who says, tisk, tisk, tisk. And Carl thought he was the family's practical joker. Want to play doctor? Then open wide and say, ah! And he screams. And that's the end of the episode. Great episode. Lots of fun to be had in this one. I had a great time watching this and rewatching it to get my notes.
I also really, really enjoyed the episode. I just didn't know how I felt with the outro, because that was actually very abrupt from the Crypt Keeper for once. Like, usually it's like he drags it on, but he just cuts right into like the punchline and just screams at you. And actually that caught me off guard. I was like, oh, that doesn't seem likely, but I'm glad he had something like that new.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought to have, like your consciousness going on, your awareness going on after death, and then not being able to do anything with the rest of your body. It's a haunting thought. Just the idea alone, I think, is really, really creepy and eerie. And the episode did enough have fun with it, to kind of make it entertaining. But the episode, its premise, I think has lasting effects. It's kind of lingering. It really did make me think about, just only being conscious and not being able to move any part of your body. So just that whole premise alone, I thought was really, really haunting. By the way, something I noticed on the second watch through, after the first prank, when Carl pranks his older brother and his older brother has a heart attack, as Marty is dying, you get that first person perspective view from Marty of his brother Carl screaming, are you okay? Are you okay? And it's the only other time we get that first person view perspective is from Carl when Carl's dead. So I wonder if the first person perspective view was from Marty in the beginning. Was Marty already dead in that moment, and then that was his consciousness living on?
Oh, probably. Like, because you see in other movies too, like when they're about to pass out or fade away, like you do have that moment of just like still like kind of having that blurred vision. So yeah, I think that's Marty's experience for sure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. So I wonder if Marty already knew firsthand that the consciousness lives on after you die, because right after a heart attack, you die. Right when your heart stops beating, you're classified as dead. So if they give you CPR and then your heart starts beating again, you've actually died. So yeah. I wonder
legally, yeah.
I wonder if he had that experience where he was conscious. That would have been an interesting bit as well. So that got me thinking again about this whole idea of being dead but not dead, like still having consciousness but not having any sort of autonomy. And the most profound thing, the most obvious thing to me was Johnny Got His Gun. Have you heard of this?
No, I have not.
So it's a movie. It's an older movie. A boy goes off to war, okay, and he gets blown up, and he loses his arms, his legs, his hearing, and his sight. So basically, he's just there. And the whole movie is basically the doctors and everybody kind of keeping him alive, but he can't do anything. He's just stuck in his own mind. And the whole movie, basically all of his dialogue is in his own internal brain, right? Like what is that thing I'm feeling? Is somebody's touching me, but what is that? Where am I? Like all that kind of stuff. And by the end of the movie, the only thing he can do is basically nod. That's all he has control over, is he can move his neck muscles to nod. So he hits his head on the table in Morse code, basically saying SOS, SOS, help. And then he basically, asks to be no longer alive. That's kind of the whole point. If that sounds interesting to you, by the way, that whole plot, you could watch the music video of One by Metallica, because Metallica actually got the rights to the movie, and they actually wrote the song One and then used bits and clips from the movie in their music video. That's how I got introduced to it, and I ended up getting the movie and watching it on my own. And it's a pretty powerful message of just having human compassion for people. At what point is it inhumane to keep somebody alive against their will? So that was a pretty powerful correlation that I got between the two. Some lesser ones, some ones that I thought were just more entertaining. I got Weekend at Bernie vibes when they were kind of carrying him around and kind of doing things with him and putting him from place to place. Now Bernie was not alive in Weekend at Bernie's, but you know what? Either was Carl. So I got some Weekend at Bernie vibes. Being in Carl's point of view perspective the whole time he's dead brought me right to RoboCop. Remember in RoboCop when Alex Murphy was killed, the whole hospital sequence of them trying to bring him back to life was from his perspective. So so you like that was the parallel hit me pretty hard there. Have you seen? It's kind of a strange movie, kind of an obscure one. Have you seen Kiss of the Dragon?
No, but That has a very interesting title. Is
Oh,
it
it's a
about
good movie. It's a
heroin?
Jet Li
Oh,
movie. It's pretty brutal. It's got some pretty gnarly action sequences, some pretty good fight sequences, but he's also like he's like an acupuncturist, and there's a certain spot in your spine that if you put an acupuncture needle, it completely paralyzes you. And that's kind of how he takes out the main bad guy. It's called the Kiss of the Dragon.
Oh.
He puts this the needle in the back of somebody's neck, totally paralyzes them, and he basically has an entire, final conversation with this person while they can't move. I got it similar to that as well.
I actually do remember watching this with Jet Li.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this movie before.
It's good. I liked it.
It is good, yeah.
Have you seen Misery?
I have seen Misery, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
Yeah. So he's not dead. Paul Sheldon's not dead in that one, but he is kind of helpless, right? Just kind of laying there. So I kind of got that vibe as well.
Have you seen Jacob's Ladder?
Oh, yes.
Because the whole movie, he's dead, and he realizes at the very end that he actually died the whole entire time.
Yes,
like that's the whole thing.
Yes, and it was basically his whole life flashing before his eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good one. I did not think about that. Yeah. And that reminds me of, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of this movie or book. I think it's actually a short story. I'm not going to be able to remember the name of this, but there is a hanging. This person is sentenced to death, right? And he's sentenced to be hanged. And he's hanged over a river, right? So he's thrown off of a bridge with a noose around his neck. But as he's falling, just as the noose is about to tighten around his neck, the rope breaks and he actually falls into the river below. And he escapes and he goes back home and he basically tells his family, I escaped death. Here I am. I lived. And he goes through this whole arc of reuniting with his family and living his life with his family, only to find out that all of that was just the moment before the noose finally tightened and he was hanged. So it ends with the rope never breaking. It was all just in his mind that he was able to escape and go back to his family. If you read that story or know that short story, if you remember the name of it, put it in the comments, because I cannot remember the name of that one. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of when you had mentioned the Jacob's Ladder, because I remember getting Jacob's Ladder vibes when I read that story. Anything else? Because I want to go on to the internal dialogue part.
Me too. I was gonna say the season 2 episode of Tales from the Crypt, when his guilt is just in his own head, and then it's like, oh, they can hear you, they know what you're doing. But then he confesses out loud. It's like that whole internal dialogue was also something I thought about instantly for this episode.
Yeah. All the internal dialogue reminded me of, I got anime vibes the whole time I was watching it. Anime is so famous for like just constant internal dialogue scenes. Oh my God, what are they going to think if I go into this room with my left foot instead of my right foot? Like they overly go for it on the internal dialogue sometimes. So I really got anime vibes. And obviously this is similar to kind of Frankenstein, right? We have like a doctor, right? A scientist bringing back people from the dead. We even had the line, I'm alive. And it was even delivered in a similar way to, it's alive. So very, very, very Frankenstein-esque. He even had his like assistant, right? Mitch. He even had like his little Igor assistant.
That's true. Huh.
All we needed was more lightning. We needed more lightning and like exterior shots of like a dark and gloomy, atmosphere around the hospital that they were at. All right. Any last things on final thoughts that you want to share before we go to rating and then correspondence?
For similarities wise, I will say the whole flashback sequence in the beginning when before he was showing off like a necrophiliac kind of vibe. I was actually thinking of the movie Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's have you seen it?
No.
It's more of a supernatural movie, but it's still a horror movie. And there's just this woman they classify as Jane Doe, and she's supposed to be like a beautiful woman, just like the one on the table for this episode. But turns out like she's a witch that had like all these crazy ritual stuff on her body. So every time they did an autopsy, it would just heal, and they don't know why. And then it goes through the whole story of like finding out what this body came from, like who it belonged to and whatnot. So I think you'd enjoy it, but I know it's more supernatural than what you might like, but it's a pretty fun movie, honestly.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. All right. Let's go to rating, Godden. What would you give this episode?
I think I'll make this as my 4.5, because I don't want to be too eager to say it's a 5, because I want to see what could actually be better than this. But this is my favorite episode of the season so far. Well, apart from Carry On Death in the premiere, I'm leaving the premiere but in its own category, because I think the premiere has to be in its own vacuum, because it's the day of release. I'm like, what episodes were good, what were not. But for the start of this season, I think this is a good one for me so far.
Yeah. I think I am going to give myself permission this season to crap on an episode and its score if I really want to, and to really embrace what I find to be a great episode. So I'm going to go for a 5 on this one.
Nice.
I'm going to give this 5 visible boom mics coming from the top of the screen.
I love that. That's great. That's their only like kind of flop in the episode, right? Just like no other episode had that.
Yeah, I really think it had to do with everybody was just distracted.
Yeah, that might have been it.
Even the boom mic operator was distracted.
Dropped it too low. Oh,
what are you giving this? 4.5 watts?
Trying to think. I think I'll just give it 4.5 heartbeats. Like just before they pass away. Yeah. Oh yeah, heart attacks. I'll do the heart attacks because there was already 2. Why not 2.5 more?
4.5 heart attacks. All right. So there you have it. A 5 from me and a 4.5 from Godden. Very good episode. This should have been in the season premiere, but
yeah.
What are you gonna do? So let's go to correspondence then. We heard back from our good friend Joseph Hill. He wrote back regarding The Secret, which was the season finale of last season. He says, this episode was not bad, but I don't think it was a great closing episode for the season. I feel like the episode has more goosebump vibes than Tales from the Crypt. I kind of agree with that. The main character being a kid, it wasn't really gory. There wasn't a lot of grotesqueness going on. It was mostly just hinted at. So I kind of agree that it was maybe more of a Goosebumps vibe. I can see, R.L. Stine writing something similar. He goes on to say it would be a perfect introduction episode for a younger fan that isn't quite ready for the more violent and vulgar episodes. Totally agree. That would be a really good introduction. I wouldn't introduce them with All Through the House. That was not a good introduction video. So Joseph Hill, thank you for that. We also heard, this is our first time commenter here, Big Bad Bon writes regarding the Television Terror episode. He says, great episode, and Morton Downey Jr. is an interesting guy. He used to run a proto Jerry Springer show, and he's basically playing himself. Yeah, very interesting guy, that Morton Downey Jr. The more I learn about him, the more interesting he becomes. Yeah, he did have like a weird TV show like that kind of exploited people. Big Bad goes on to say, if you're a wrestling fan, he got hosed down by Roddy Piper at WrestleMania. I'm not the biggest wrestling fan, but my older brother was back in the day. So I know of Roddy Piper. I know, the Hulk Hogan and I always liked Ric Flair. Woo! I always liked Ric Flair and his stupid little thing like that. So I didn't see Morton Downey get hosed by Roddy Piper. Did you ever watch wrestling?
Yeah, but I don't remember watching WrestleMania when I was younger. It was WWE Raw and like SmackDown, but it was only a handful,
So you started watching it back. You started watching it was WWE already?
Yes, mid 2000s when I saw on TV.
Because when my brother was watching it back in the day, it was WWF.
That, like the original.
Yeah. My brother, I still think of it as WWF because he would always watch World Wrestling Federation. But that was WWF was already the World Wildlife Federation. So it was already taken.
Oh, that's why they made the name change?
Yeah, they had to make the change. Yeah. All right. I do want to give some shout outs before we go. If you are into this Tales from the Crypt and podcasts about Tales from the Crypt, there's a couple others out there for you that I definitely keep up with. Creeps of the Crypt and the Crypt Keepers podcast. I'm still listening to both of them. So as soon as I finish with this episode, Abra Cadaver, I'm going to go watch their episode to see what they had to say about it. So if you're interested, you can go check them out as well. I'll leave links to their information down below. Haddonfield Radio. I still got a lot of love in my heart for that podcast. They're a couple of good fellas, and they watch old classic slasher horror movies, and then they just basically give a commentary for the entire movie, as well as Return, Revenge, Resurrection, another great podcast that talk about all the older slasher horror movies. I like them as well. And there's us, the Cryptique podcast. You're already here. If you're enjoying us and what we have to offer, you can find us in more places. My name's Kenny. You can find me at 2 Bad About Kenny. That's TOO Bad About Kenny, as well as the number 2 Bad About Kenny here on YouTube, as well as Twitch, where I live stream video games. Right now I'm playing Ocarina of Time. I'm doing the 3-heart challenge in Ocarina of Time. Godden, I'm going to beat Zelda Ocarina of Time with only 3 hearts. I also do movie and book reviews. So look around and find more of me if you'd like. Godden, how about you?
Well, they can find me at Twitch at UAPPO6. Unfortunately, at the moment, I haven't been streaming as much. I got a little busy, but when I'm back on the stream, you can find me playing a variety of games. At the moment, still playing Silent Hill, so just horror games. I'm going to try and get through my list of games. And you can also follow us at Cryptikers on Twitter to keep up with updates or any episodes you might have missed out. That can just make sure it's all cataloged there as well.
All right. With that all out of the way, I invite you to come visit us again next week. We'll be watching Season 3, Episode 5, Top Billing. If you're following along at home, watch that episode by next week, and then tune in to hear us go on about it. Until next week, stay creepy, kiddies.
Well, how was that for a scream?